The macabre story of the priest who wrote a forbidden secret before he disappeared. Salem, 1898. Before we dive into this story, I'd like to know, where are you watching from today? London, Manchester, Birmingham, Edinburgh, Liverpool, Bristol? Drop it in the comments below. I always love reading your messages. Now let's begin. October 13th, 1898, St. Mary's Church, Salem, Massachusetts. The autumn rain pounded violently against the Gothic stained-glass windows of St. Mary's Church, while the howling wind slipped through the stone cracks, carrying a damp cold that chilled to the bone. It was 9:47 p.m., and Father Ignatius Cross, 47 years old, angular face marked by years of vigils and fasting, leaned in the wrought-iron confessional toward the dying Philip Vargas. The old man, a ruined wool merchant crushed by debts, gasped with bluish lips, his breath reeking of blood and opium from Salem Hospital. "Father, in the crypt, beneath the third arch." "The black book from the witch trials," whispered Philip, extending a bundle of mouldy parchments wrapped in yellowed blessed linen cloth. "It opens the doors that God sealed with salt and psalms. I touched it, and the shadows followed me." His eyes glazed over, and a final death rattle escaped his throat. Ignatius blessed the lifeless body, but his hands trembled as he untied the package. "Liber Ostium Inferni" read the cover in cracked leather, bearing burn marks from the 16th century. The manuscript detailed forbidden rituals, invocations to guardians of the threshold through circles of coarse salt, palm blood, and psalms recited backwards during the third hour of night. "Heretic's curse, I'll burn it at dawn," murmured Ignatius, widowed since youth. His wife dead in childbirth, their stillborn son buried with her, ordained priest for redemption. But curiosity, that old demon, dragged him that very night to the parish crypt. The crypt. Midnight. The air below was a living dungeon, 46 degrees, 90% humidity, penetrating smell of centuries-old mold, burnt wax and disturbed earth. Rhythmic drops fell from the vaulted ceiling, amplified by the cold stone. Ignatius lit 4 tallow candles on a splintered oak table, drawing a tentative circle of salt from the sacristy. He opened the first page. The Gothic letters seemed to bleed fresh ink, moving like veins under the trembling light. "Diary of Father Ignatius, Entry 1, found years later. The formulas are not witches' madness. They are precise keys, geometry of the beyond. At 3:17 a.m., the shadow on the wall of the third arch formed an outstretched hand. It was not mine. Philip did not lie. Tomorrow I will test the inverted psalm." A dull thud resonated from the third arch, like a fist against rotten wood. Ignatius gathered candles and manuscript, climbing the spiral stairs with his heart racing. At dawn, the sexton Jeremiah, 72 years old, bent with rheumatism, found the confessional empty in the sacristy. Philip Vargas had disappeared from Salem Hospital, his bed intact, sheets cold, the window ajar to the rain. Present day. April 15th, 2023. Adrian Morris's apartment, downtown Salem, Massachusetts. Adrian, 32 years old, atheist, skeptic, freelance digital restorer with disheveled beard and dark circles from sleepless nights, won an online auction for $200. Father Ignatius's original diary, 187 pages bound in human skin, according to rumor. Under the torrential rain flooding Salem's cobblestone streets, he scanned the pages with his high-resolution Epson equipment. "Pure religious pathology," he laughed, uploading the file to his Dropbox. At 3:17 a.m., his OCR software beeped an anomaly, hidden audio embedded in the digitized paper fibers. Guttural whispers in Latin poured from his Bose speakers. "Adrian, ego apparui ostium. The guardian is you." His black cat scratched at the bedroom door, and on the freshly painted wall appeared a fresh scratch, an outstretched hand beneath the third arch. Adrian called his ex-girlfriend, Lucy Vargas, archivist at the Salem Historical Archives. "This isn't a glitch. Come now, and bring your crucifix." October 20th, 1898. Crypt of St. Mary's Church, Salem. The autumn wind howled over the church roof tiles as the rain turned into a relentless downpour, flooding Salem Common's cobblestone paths with puddles reflecting gas lamp glow. It was 2:45 a.m. when Father Ignatius descended again to the crypt, carrying the Liber Ostium Inferni under his arm and a blessed spade in his trembling hand. The air below was suffocating, 45 degrees, 95% humidity, rhythmic drips like a macabre clock, smell of freshly turned earth and rancid wax that clung to the throat. He lit 6 tallow candles on the splintered table, tracing a perfect circle of coarse salt stolen from the sacristy. "If you're a divine messenger, show yourself," he whispered, opening the manuscript to page 47. He recited the inverted psalm with a broken voice. "Ego aperui ostium quod numquam debuit aperiri." An impossible gust extinguished 3 candles. On the wall of the third arch, fresh scratches emerged as if clawed by invisible nails, Kabbalistic equations matching the books, glowing with a greenish sheen. "Answer, guardian of the threshold!" Ignatius shouted, his breath forming clouds in the cold. A guttural voice, like gravel scraping stone, replied from the darkness, "The price is the living guardian." His right hand bled suddenly, 3 deep cuts forming the manuscript symbol, no weapon, no visible cause. The blood dripped onto the salt, dissolving it into acrid smoke. Diary of Father Ignatius. Entry 7. "I summon no demons from hell, but messengers of the threshold. My hand bleeds with purpose. Tomorrow, I dig beneath the third arch. The beating heart calls me. At 3:17, shadows form clerical silhouettes. Philip was right, I have opened the door." Sister Clara, 60 years old, heavy widow with arthritic knees, heard rhythmic pounding from the crypt at 3:17 a.m. while praying matins in the choir. "Father Ignatius, are you injured down there?" No one answered. Only the echo of dragging footsteps climbing the spiral stairs. At dawn, his monastic cell was empty, his quill dripping black ink onto the flagstone floor, forming a pool that seemed to pulse. The hospital mystery. At Salem Hospital, the nuns confirmed Philip Vargas had vanished from his intact bed at midnight. The half-open window dripped rain, and on the sill grains of coarse salt mixed with dried blood. April 15th, 2023. Adrian Morris's apartment downtown Salem. The torrential rain lashed Adrian's attic windows, 32 years old, skeptic atheist with 3-day beard and deep-set dark circles from caffeine-fueled nights. The diary audio. "Adrian, the guardian is you," looped on his Bose speakers, while his black cat, Shadow, clawed furiously at the bedroom door. On the freshly painted living room wall, the fresh scratch formed an outstretched hand beneath a Gothic arch, identical to the scanned diary. "Damn it, Lucy, this isn't an Instagram filter," he yelled into the phone, voice trembling for the first time in years. Lucy Vargas, his ex of 2 years, 30 years old, archivist at the Salem Historical Archives, brown hair in a practical bun and green eyes wounded by the breakup, arrived in 20 minutes under the deluge, umbrella dripping. "Adrian, you're paranoid. It's post-digitization suggestion," she said skeptically, but paled seeing the scratch. "This matches the third arch of St. Mary's. Look at the scanner." The Epson software showed anomalies. Precise GPS coordinates beneath the church, 42, 5195 degree N, 70.8967 dig W, pointing to the exact reliquary mentioned in Diary Entry 7. The cat yowled sharply at 3:17 a.m. and the speakers crackled on their own. "Come to the threshold, guardians." Lucy traced an improvised circle of table salt on the floor. The wall scratch extended 1 inch, dripping a red bead. Adrian, heart at 120 BPM, looked at Lucy. "I'm not running this time. Let's go to the crypt." Now she nodded, crossing her silver crucifix. "But if it's real, who closes the door?" April 16th, 2023. St. Mary's Crypt, 3:17 a.m. The air thickened like stagnant water, pressing on Adrian and Lucy's eardrums until they popped. Father Ignatius's silhouette solidified before the third arch. Black cassock, tattered by 125 years of decay, fleshless face with hollow sockets burning 2 greenish light points, right hand extended, holding a goose quill dripping black ink onto the stone. The stench of burnt wax and graveyard soil flooded the crypt as the temperature plunged to 28 tildeans, making every breath of the living visible. "Guardian, offer your chest or open my eternal threshold," roared the voice with cavernous echo, emerging not from the mouth but from the opened reliquary where the mummified heart now beat at 140 BPM, synchronized with Adrian's. The young man felt his sternum burn as if red-hot irons pierced it, collapsing to his knees on the salt-burned circle. "No, I'm not your prisoner," he gasped, voice broken by ancestral terror no atheism could erase. Lucy, crucifix raised with bleeding hand, stepped between Adrian and the silhouette. "In the name of the Eternal Father, release this man. Your pact died in 1898. The entity turned toward her, its laugh a rusted hinge screech. "Vargas." Her blood opened the book. "Her great-great-grandfather Philip handed me the keys. She is the threshold." Lucy paled. "You lie." "Philip Vargas was my ancestor." Emotional flashback. 15 minutes earlier in the apartment, while digitally mapping coordinates, Adrian had confessed through tears his foundational trauma. "My alcoholic father abandoned me at age 9. Left a note. Some men are born to run. I've run from commitments, from you, from everything requiring staying and fighting." Lucy, still hurt by their breakup 2 years prior, had replied with broken voice. "That's why you left when I asked for commitment. But Adrian, tonight you're not running. You came to the crypt. That counts. Present, crucial decision." Adrian rose, trembling, rejecting Lucy's support. "No, enough running." He pulled a Swiss Army knife from his backpack, slicing his right palm with animal determination. Fresh blood fell on the mummified heart, sizzling like oil on fire, and the beat slowed to 60 BPM. Ignatius's silhouette staggered, seizing Adrian's arm with a marble-cold hand. The Guardian closes with his life. That's the eternal price. Lucy, in desperate lucidity, read the digital manuscript backwards. "No! The text says, 'Shared blood breaks bloodlines.' Adrian, mix your blood with mine." They clasped cut palms, blood of skeptic atheist and Philip Vargas's descendant, merging, dripping together onto the reliquary. A black light explosion erupted, hurling them against the stone wall. The clerical silhouette shattered like crystal. "Free, finally, free," it cried, voice shifting from guttural to human, dissolving into acrid smoke rising up the spiral stairs. The mummified heart disintegrated into grey ashes, smelling of funeral incense. The hidden tunnel. But where the reliquary had lain, the stone floor cracked, revealing a descending staircase sealed since 1898 with mortar and iron nails. Colder air still, air unbreathed by anyone for 125 years, burst from the hole. On the newly opened tunnel walls, clawed with nails and blood, a message repeated 47 times. The Guardian closes with his life. Those who open descend. November 12th, 1898. High altar of St. Mary's Church, Salem. The autumn fog enveloped Salem Common like a shroud, muffling gas lamp footsteps and the distant tolling of the first church bells. Beneath the high altar, Father Ignatius, now gaunt, eyes sunken in dark sockets, 33 pounds lighter in 3 weeks, ashen skin clinging to bones, dug with a blessed 6-foot spade, its splintered handle cutting his already ritual-scarred palms. The crypt air was a fetid breath, 41-degree saturated humidity, smell of virgin earth and metallic iron tasting of blood on the tongue. Fat drops fell from the vaulted ceiling, synchronized with his erratic 110 BPM pulse. At 4 feet depth, the spade struck lead, a fist-sized reliquary engraved with inverted psalms and sealed with 16th-century black wax. Ignatius pried it open with trembling fingers. Inside, a mummified human heart, wrinkled like a prune, pulsed faintly, once per minute spectral beat. "You are the threshold seal," whispered the guttural voice from the third arch's shadows. "To close it, offer a living guardian, fresh blood, eternal will." In blind panic, Ignatius fled to the sacristy, hurling the Liber Ostium Inferni into the cold brazier. But the flames reversed like demonic reflux, blistering his left hand instead, skin bubbling, stench of burnt flesh filling the air. Screaming in agony, he burst into Salem Common, under thick fog, cassock dripping mud. "I've opened the door God sealed. The heart beats with my blood." Drunken sailors and mourners saw him vanish into an adjacent alley at 3:17 a.m., his scream cut off as by an invisible hand. Only his quill remained, stabbed into the cobblestones, dripping ink forming the Kabbalistic symbol. Father Ignatius's final diary entry, scrawled by invisible hands, found days later. "The heart now beats with my blood. I cannot close it. The next guardian will read this and feel my pulse in his chest. At 3:17, come to the third arch." Sister Clara found the diary open on the altar, pages splattered with dried blood that seemed to form new letters under candlelight. April the 16th, 2023, night in St. Mary's Crypt. The rain had stopped, leaving Salem wrapped in cold fog, creeping through cobblestone streets like spectral fingers. Adrian Morris, 32, skeptic shattered by raw terror, and Lucy Vargas, 30, archivist clutching her silver crucifix, pried open the crypt's rusted gate with a stolen crowbar from a nearby construction site. The spiral stair descent was a tunnel of darkness. Air at 39 de Festa, amplified drip echoes, smell of centuries-old mold, and something metallic like old coins. The third arch greeted them with an icy gust. Adrian's maglight illuminated. The floor bore a salt-dissolved burn circle, identical to the manuscript. "Here, exact coordinates," murmured Lucy, checking her tablet scanner. They dug with folding shovels for 47 minutes, sweat-soaking shirts despite the cold, until striking lead, the reliquary emerged wrapped in pulsating white roots. Upon opening, the mummified heart pulsed, synchronized with Adrian and Lucy's 90 BPM pulses. Lucy touched the digital diary on her tablet. Her hand bled instantly, 3 cuts forming the Kabbalistic symbol. "Adrian, the voice says, you are the guardian. Your blood closes or opens it forever." He staggered back, chest crushed like by an icy fist. "No, I don't believe in this." But the heart raced to 140 BPM, and elongated shadows on the arch wall formed a clerical silhouette, tattered cassock, outstretched hand with dripping quill. It advanced toward them, dragging footsteps echoing on stone. "Cliffhanger," the silhouette whispered in a sepulchral voice. "Guardian, offer your chest, or open my eternal threshold." Dragging footsteps, not one, but multiple, ascended from the absolute darkness below. A litany of voices whispered names. Philip Vargas, Jeremiah Allen, Clara Smith, Adrian Morris. Adrian's maglight shook in his hand as the first step yawned open before them, a rectangle of pure black that seemed to swallow the thin cone of light. The dragging footsteps from below grew clearer, wet leather on stone, accompanied by a pulsing throb, like many hearts beating in a closed chest. The air that rose from the opening was even colder than the crypt, carrying the smell of wet rock, rust, and something sweet and rotten, like long-forgotten flowers left on a grave. "Adrian, "We don't have to go down," Lucy whispered, though her body stepped closer to the hole as if pulled by a tide. Her breath came out in white clouds, the names still whispered from the darkness, overlapping like a litany. Philip Vargas, Jeremiah Allen, Clara Smith, Ignatius Cross, Adrian Morris. Each name made the stone under their feet vibrate faintly, as though the church itself remembered. He swallowed hard. His entire life flashed in microscopic, painful details. His father's note, "Some men are born to run," the slammed apartment door the night he left Lucy, the job offers abandoned as soon as something got difficult. Every instinct screamed to back away, seal the opening, pretend none of this had ever happened. But the throbbing underground matched his own pulse, like a second heart demanding an answer. "If we walk away," he said hoarsely, "someone else finds that diary. Someone else becomes the guardian." Lucy met his eyes, and in hers he saw the same terror and something else, the stubborn courage he'd fallen in love with. "Then we don't walk away," she said. "We finish what they couldn't." They clasped hands and stepped down together. The Chamber of Hearts. The staircase spiraled down farther than the church's foundations should have reached. Adrian counted in a whisper to keep from panicking. At the 32nd step, the walls became rough-hewn bedrock, slick with condensation. At the 73rd, little niches appeared at shoulder height, each holding a stub of petrified candle and a name scratched beneath in shaky letters. He ran the light over them as they descended. Manuel Ortega, 1789, Teresa Villard, 1813, Jeremiah Allen, 1847, Clara Smith, 1865. All carried the same final mark beneath the date, a crude heart with a line through it. At the 107th step, the tunnel opened into a circular chamber, about 8 meters across, ceiling lost in dripping darkness. In the center stood an altar of stone so black it seemed to drink the light. Around it, arranged in a perfect ring, were 17 lead reliquaries, each the size of a small box, their lids engraved with upside-down psalms. From inside them came the sound of the beating, 17 mummified hearts, all pulsing in perfect synchrony at 60 beats per minute, like a monstrous metronome regulating the space. The air here was freezing and utterly still, yet each breath tasted faintly of incense and dried blood. Behind the altar something flickered. Then Father Ignatius stepped forward, no longer the half-rotted horror from the crypt, but a man as he must have appeared in 1898. His cassock was whole, his hair dark and neatly combed, his eyes a tired human brown. He looked at them with a mixture of awe and guilt, as if he'd been waiting so long he no longer believed anyone would come. "You walked down of your own will," he said quietly. His voice no longer boomed, but carried that same hollow echo, like someone speaking from inside a stone well. None of the others did. They were dragged. The broken pact. Lucy tightened her grip on Adrian's hand. The others? The names on the walls? They were guardians? Ignatius nodded slowly. Guardians, sacrifices, prisoners. The book doesn't distinguish. Each time someone opened it, the threshold demanded a life to close again. If they accepted, their heart joined the circle. He gestured at the reliquaries. If they refused, the door stayed open until some new soul stumbled upon the pages. His gaze settled on Adrian. "You broke the first rule when you bled without accepting the bargain. You broke the second when you mixed your blood with hers. The threshold is confused." Adrian felt a grim laugh building in his throat. That would be a first. My chaos finally useful to something. But the humor died as the heart's rhythm shifted. 60 beats per minute rose to 70, then 80, a rising hum in their bones. The stone altar vibrated under Lucy's fingertips when she dared to touch it. "What happens if it can't decide?" she asked. Ignatius hesitated, then answered with stark honesty. It either collapses or it devours everything it's bound to, this tunnel, the crypt, the church above, every soul entangled in its line. Vargas, Allen, Cross, Morris. He stepped closer, and for the first time they could see the thin line of a scar running down his chest where his heart had once been. You can still choose the old way. One of you offers a life, the heart's rest, the other walks away. Or, his expression changed, fragile hope flickering. Or you pull the knife out of God's hand, deny the premise, refuse to feed the door at all. Lucy's head snapped toward him. That's what we did upstairs. Ignatius shook his head. No. Upstairs, you only starved me. Down here, you would have to starve all of it. Starving the threshold. The hearts were hammering now, the air buzzing with their pace. Dust rained from the ceiling in fine streams. Adrian realized his own heart had synced with them again. Each thud in his chest matched the vibrating stone beneath his boots. How? He asked, louder than he meant to. We can't break these open and stomp a century of curses into the floor. Ignatius gave the faintest hint of a smile. You don't break them from the outside. You change what they feed on. He pointed at the crude numerals carved into the altar's edge, running like a ring of dates around it. 1692, 1731, 1789, 1813, 1847, 1865, 1898. Every closing was sealed with fear, guilt, and solitude. The guardian always died alone, convinced they were damned. Lucy understood first. So the door thinks that's the only flavor of sacrifice that counts. Ignatius nodded. Exactly. Show it another kind. Show it a heart that doesn't break alone. Adrian looked at the 17 boxes, at Lucy's blood-stained fingers entwined with his, at the priest who'd spent 125 years locked inside a choice he'd made in despair. Running had brought him nothing but emptiness. Maybe standing still, here, in the heart of something monstrous, was the first real decision of his life. What if we don't die? He asked, voice steadying. What if we give it something living and refuse to let it take us? Lucy squeezed his hand so hard it hurt. We stay, together, as long as it takes. She stepped up to the altar, pulling Adrian beside her so their joined hands rested on the cold black stone. You want a guardian? She said, loudly enough that her voice bounced off the curved walls. You get two, but we don't belong to you. We belong to each other. Adrian closed his eyes, half expecting lightning, teeth, tearing claws. Instead, the heart's pounding slowed. 90, 80, 70, 60 again. For the first time, the beats went out of sync, stumbling like a choir that lost its conductor. Cracks appeared on the reliquary's lids, fine as hairlines. Ignatius watched, eyes wide. It doesn't understand, he whispered. It can't categorize you. A sacrifice without abandonment, a guardian who refuses to be alone. One by one, the lids fractured, not outward but inward, imploding into the ash within. The sound was soft, like knuckles rapping on thin glass, repeated 17 times. The pulsing stopped. In the sudden silence, they heard only their own breathing and the distant ordinary creak of the church settling above. For the first time since they'd entered, the chamber smelled only of cold rock. The sweetness of old blood was gone. Epilogue. After the door. The tunnel shook once, violently, then grew still. A fine veil of dust drifted down, but the ceiling held. Ignatius looked lighter, his edges blurred, as if someone had gently smudged the charcoal lines of his figure. It's done, he said, wonder threaded through his words. The hearts have been returned. The line is broken. He placed a hand, no longer icy, simply cool, on Adrian's shoulder. You didn't just close the door, you changed its nature. It can't ask for what it doesn't remember. When they climbed back up the stairs, the crack in the crypt floor had sealed into unmarked stone. It took the parish committee 3 weeks to decide the crypt was structurally unsafe.